Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, February the 28th, 2019 regular session of the Xenia City Council. We have a full house this evening for a couple of very special presentation, and we will begin at this time first with our invocation led by Mr. Van Holloway, from an elder from the Emmanuel Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Sarah Mays. If you would please rise with me for the invocation and pledge.
Let us pray together this evening. Our God, we thank you for this city and this community. The wealth of a society is measured by the number of options and choices that we have. And there's so many places on this earth that have so much less than we do. And I pray, God, that you would find us to be thankful to you for the opportunities and options that we have every day. I thank you for this city. I thank you for those who serve on the various boards and commissions. Father, I thank you for these council members. I pray that you would give them wisdom and guidance as they lead this city, the decisions that they make. I pray, Father, for Brent and Ryan and Donette and Michelle who serve. I pray, Father, that they and their staff will work with wisdom and integrity and honesty. And I pray, Father, that the decisions that they will make will make this community a richer place, better place to live. Father, tonight we also want to thank you for the judicial system. We know it's not perfect. We know it's run by people who are still human. But I thank you for Judge Murray and those in his office who work to uphold justice. And tonight we're especially thankful, Father, for our first responders. I thank you for Chief Rigsby and Chief Person. I pray, Father, for your protection over those that go toward disaster, go toward crisis. And I just pray, Father, that they might be protected in their work and bring a special blessing to this community and to many people. God, we recognize that prayer is a gift from you, and I am so thankful that this is a community where we can pray even when we're not in crisis, because it reminds us that we are dependent on you each day. So bless this proceeding this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Elder Holloway and Mayor Mays. May I have roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace.
Here.
Councilman Urschel.
Here.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Dean. Here. Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Here. May I have a motion, please, for approval of minutes? First, our February 6, 2019 special session, please.
So moved, Mr. President.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach, seconded by the Vice President.
Actually, I
You
yield
beat me to it.
I yield
By
to.
Councilman Smith. Any questions or comments on our special session meeting minutes, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And now a motion, please, for the February 14th, 2019 regular session.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach, seconded by the Vice President this time. Any discussion or question on this set of minutes, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean. Aye. Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now it's our opportunity. We have two special presentations this evening. First one is a proclamation for firefighter paramedic Levi Dalton. Mayor.
Thank you. Could I have Levi join me in the front, please?
we are here tonight to honor firefighter Dalton and his heroic efforts. And so I am going to read this proclamation and present this to you. Be it proclaimed, whereas Levi Dalton has chosen a career of service to the community and is trained to protect life and property by performing firefighting and rendering emergency aid, and has been employed with the City of Xenia Fire Division as a firefighter paramedic since May 7, 2017. And whereas a firefighter paramedic is trained to respond while on duty, but on Friday, February 8, 2019, Levi was returning home and found his neighbor Will carrying his lifeless 17-month-old daughter Harper out of their home after calling 911. And whereas firefighter Dalton did not hesitate to jump into action and use his training to perform life-saving CPR. And whereas Warren County Deputy Sheriff Andrew Grossenbaugh was in the neighborhood and responded to the 911 call, and with a concern that a medic would not arrive in enough time to save the child's life, Levi and Deputy Grossenbaugh transported the child in his cruiser to Atrium Medical Center, where she was assessed and transported by CareFlight to Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And whereas Harper's mother, Maggie, said Harper was released from the hospital only 24 hours after the accident and is expected to make a full recovery, and the team of doctors at Cincinnati Children's Hospital have credited firefighter Dalton and Officer Grossenbaugh for their heroic efforts to save her life. Now, therefore, I, Sarah J. Mays, Mayor for the City of Xenia, Ohio, do hereby proclaim Thursday, February 28, 2019, as Levi Dalton Day in the City of Xenia, and ask that you all join me in thanking firefighter Dalton and Deputy Grossenbaugh for their bravery and outstanding effort to save little Harper's life.
In the fire division, we've never really done any type of rewards, or awards, I should say. And we decided, you know, with this case especially, you know, you touch a lot of people's hearts. For the people in the audience, Harper is sitting right here.
Beautiful.
So she's here with us today. Kind of excited. So we started talking about what do we want to do for an award. And so we said, you know, how do we name an award? So I got to thinking about it a little bit, and I went back and decided I wanted to name it the Charles Beeson Award of Valor. And the reason I wanted to name it is, let me read a little statement about Chief Beeson. And Chief Beeson hopefully is watching tonight. He was under the weather. I was hoping to have him here with us to be able to help present the award, but he's under the weather, so. Chief Charles Beeson was hired to the City of Xenia in 1963, promoted to lieutenant in 1970, captain, which is like our deputy chief today, second in command, in 1973, and then fire chief in 1977. He was chief until his retirement in 1991. Chief Beeson was also the one that hired me. I bugged him to death for 6 months till he gave me a job, so I do appreciate that. In December of 1975, Xenia Fire Division had its first 8 firefighters complete the state 240-hour required paramedic school and was certified as Xenia Fire Division's first paramedics. Today, the paramedic schooling is about a 2-year program, so it's really increased over the years of what we do. Chief Beeson was promoted to fire chief about a year later and was very instrumental in growing our EMS program. So that the paramedics could utilize their skills, the City Commission authorized the purchase of their first cardiac and telemetry unit. So they had 1 unit, 2 medics. So the medic out on the west side of town, if they had anything that was cardiac related, they would send 2 medics because they only had 1 cardiac monitor. So today, we have 6 cardiac monitors as we have grown the program. Eventually, through attrition, in 1977, it became a requirement for all newly hired firefighters to become paramedics. Chief Beeson was part of that. Eventually, through attrition, all firefighters would be paramedics in the city of Xenia. Chief Beeson continued to support and expand our program through the purchase of equipment and training. Xenia Fire Division takes pride in what we do in our EMS on a daily basis. Not only did Chief Beeson take pride in our EMS program, but he continued to make changes toward increased safety, such as updated personal protective equipment for firefighters. He also worked to develop the city's disaster warning system and contingency plan. Chief Beeson was an asset to the Xenia Fire Division and someone that I myself look up to as a mentor and feel that's why I'm in the position I'm in today. I feel it appropriate that we name this award the Chief Beeson, or excuse me, Charles Beeson Award of Valor. Chief Beeson, thank you for what you've done for Xenia Fire Division. So, thinking about this, we developed an award. So here's a certificate for you. It basically states Charles Beeson Award of Valor presented to Levi Dalton for your heroic actions to save the life on February 8, 2019 while off duty. You are a prime example of the pride we take in our job on or off duty to help others in Xenia Fire Division. And on behalf of Chief Beeson, I'd like to present you this award, and it has the same language that's on there. I will say that we talked to, we got a phone call from, well, correct me, is your stepbrother?
Yeah, Aaron.
Aaron?
Yes.
Aaron is a firefighter up in the Cleveland area. Aaron talked to the doctors at Cincinnati Children's, and the doctors at Cincinnati Children's stated if it had not been for Levi and Officer Grossenberg, the outcome for Harper would have been totally different. So again, we thank you. We thank you for your service and what you do for Xenia Fire Division. Thank you.
Firefighter Dalton, don't leave just yet. You are welcome to the podium, sir, if you would like to address anyone or anything at this time.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
I'll be pretty short and sweet on it. I'm just humbled by, what happened and everything, and timing was key. I thank God for, how everything played out. I'm pretty loud. Like I said, I'm just humbled that, it worked out the way it did. It just goes to show, like, good things can happen to some of the best parents, you never really know. They're great neighbors, great people, love having them as neighbors. Like I said, just timing was key, and it's not often that there's cops ever in our neighborhood, like ever. And he was there for a different reason. Obviously, just happened to be driving by, and a lot of it was timing, but it wasn't really so scary until after it was over with, and I was like, wow, like what just happened? Like holy cow! But like I said, I'm just humbled by it, and like I said, I'm just happy that the outcome was like it was. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. little out of our normal routine, but if any of the family would like to speak, you are welcome to do so. Please step to the podium if you would like.
I will try not to get emotional. Levi, this was a nightmare in any mother's eyes. And I am forever in debt to you. I know what is so great for me is that you're so humble by this. But I truly believe that whoever put you in this profession did it for a reason. It is in your DNA. It is who you are. You didn't even stop and think, you just did. And that's what saved my little girl's life. And so I am so appreciative of you and the officer, because you're right. In any moment, if you had chosen to wait for that ambulance to come, they told me it would have been a completely different outcome. So I thank you for being in my community, for being my neighbor especially, and just being a wonderful person, because I already knew that about you. But thank you for just being you and just doing, because that's what you do. And you see horrible things on a regular basis, and it never stops you because you just care about the people around you, and I am forever grateful. And so my daughter has a few guardian angels, all right, but I have 4 heroes that will always be, and that's my husband and my son, and you, and the officer. And she will know forever, all right, that you will always be in her corner no matter what. And so I appreciate everything, I really do. Thank you so very much.
To expand just a little bit on what she said, and I read her story on Facebook, Maggie, and it was pretty amazing. One of the things that we didn't mention, Levi was coming home, correct? Driving home, stopped his car in the middle of the road, and Will told me this on the phone. Stopped his car in the middle of the road, jumped out of the car, ran up, grabbed Harper, started CPR. The officer pulls up, and Levi asks the officer, how far away is the medic? That's our first mind, that's how we react. The officer said, the medic has not even left the station yet. And Levi asked the officer, how fast can you get me to the atrium? And the officer said, as fast as you can get in the car with him. And that's what they did, and that's the job. That's the job that we do on a daily basis. You know, I appreciate what he did. Every one of my guys, I know that will happen with. So we appreciate that. So I just want to get a little more on the story because it does have a lot of meaning. So one more thing, if I may.
Please.
We had several other guys that were recognized last night. Lieutenant Dill, is he in here? All right, he had to leave on a call, so he's working. Lieutenant Strout is standing out here in the hallway. And firefighter Ben Bodecker. They were recognized last night out of Xenia Township by Kettering Hospital for a save of a 26-year-old female that had given birth to a baby and had a rare genetic heart disease and went into cardiac arrest. And these folks, and she also walked out of the hospital, went home. So I just want to give a true thanks to those guys and recognize them here too. So thank you.
To get a photo of the family, also Levi, if we could get you and the command staff of the Xenia Fire Department very quickly in front of the podium here.
Thank you so much.
Precious.
Your family as well.
She's darling.
Yes.
Okay, if we can get you to look this way, folks, that'd be great. I'll try to get the ones straight. Okay, can I have you move just a little bit this way and command staff just a little bit closer, please? Braxton? Hey, Braxton. Where's the man?
That's all right.
I'll pick you up.
Ready? Come here.
That's so funny.
That's all right.
All right, here we go. Ready?
He's not interested.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. Sure.
Well, I told her my in-laws are in Lebanon. They're there all the time. So now I know.
Yeah, be careful going home. It's starting to snow.
Thank you.
I'd like Maggie to expand on what Aiden did, because this is one of the things we want to talk about. You know, we talk about with our kids in school. We do prevention programs, is what to do when there's an emergency.
So I actually was not home, and it was my son Aiden, who is 10, and my daughter Ella, who is 7, and my husband. And my son Aiden had actually walked out into the loft, and he was actually the first person to see Harper. Harper was hanging unconscious behind the couch, and his first instinct was to go help her. And when he knew right away that he could not help her, he went and got his dad and then grabbed his dad's phone and called 911. Aiden was the one that called 911 as Will ran to Harper to try to do CPR himself. Aiden was able to go down the stairs with the phone and talk to the dispatch until my husband was able to talk to them. So for me as a mom, I'll be honest, I don't know if I ever told my son. I know I told him to call 911, you know, but you can't practice that, nor do you ever want to practice that. And so it's one of those things that in my heart it makes me feel so good to know that he had to have learned it from somewhere. And, you know, we've talked about he learned in school and, you know, things like that, and going to programs where we've done with the fire and the police and things like that. So just knowing that, you know, that is making an impact on our kids. And he did it. And so he is truly my hero as well. And I think he's the best big brother ever, I'll tell you what. So, but yeah, just for him to know to do that is just incredible. Yes.
Thank you again, Firefighter Dalton, Chief Rigsby, family. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It is starting to snow out there. As you return to your homes, please be very careful. The winter has not left us yet, unfortunately. We'll now move on to our second special presentation of this evening. It is regarding the 2020 census. Ms. Elizabeth Whitaker from MVRPC, please.
Hello. All right.
And if you'd like to take just a moment while we let people go, that would be great.
Should have made the
Control.
honorary Xenia fighter.
We have. I know. Mom real quick before she leaves. That's what is that okay? Have communicate with the mom before she leaves. I know it was.
Elizabeth, you thought all these people was here for you.
That's really going to be hard to follow.
Very hard, yeah.
Yeah. I think I actually need to stand on it. I need that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My presentation will not be as incredible as that. So, so good evening. Thank you for having me out. My name is Elizabeth Whitaker. I am a senior planner with the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about the 2020 census and some of the activities that are underway to help prepare the region for this. So hopefully you're familiar with the census, but since it's something we only do once every 10 years, it's not always front of mind. The U.S. Constitution does mandate that there be a complete count of every person residing in the United States every 10 years. The next census will take place in 2020. The aim of the census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. So while the census is still more than a year away, work is underway to help prepare the region for the census. A complete and accurate count during the census is of critical importance since we do have to live with the outcomes of the census for the next 10 years. And unfortunately with the census, we don't get any do-overs. So this is our once-in-a-decade opportunity to get this right. So while the census is something we do once every 10 years, it really does have an impact on our day-to-day lives. So census results are used to apportion congressional seats among the states. It's used to draw legislative districts, voting precincts, and things like that. So it's about representation. The census is also about funding. There are more than $675 billion in federal funds that are allocated every year using census figures. So that is a huge number. That is billions with a B. We also know that the state uses census values to help allocate funding. So the census is about getting our fair share of funding and resources. And lastly, the census is critical to guiding decision-making across government, the private sector, academic research, and nonprofits. So I want to quickly show this slide. This is not intended to be something for you to read. There is a lot going on there, but that's the point of the slide. So this is nearly 50 ways that census data is used. And again, it's critical to guiding decision-making across all levels of government. Business use it, the nonprofit community service providers use it, academic research uses it. So it's really critical because of all of these sectors using it that we try to get the information as accurate as possible. So next census is in 2020, and specifically Census Day is April 1st, so mark your calendars. And in the lead up to Census Day, we will be working to get the region ready for a complete and accurate count. So this has been a priority for us at the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and I'm going to walk through a couple of examples that I hope will help make the point as to why this is important. So we'll start with this map. So I've zoomed in here to Greene County as a whole. And this map shows a Census Bureau developed statistic or figure that anticipates census participation. So they've done a lot of research and they know that there are certain socioeconomic and demographic characteristics that make people harder to count. So this map shows anticipated participation. The areas kind of in those blue and purple tones are areas that are expected to have the lowest levels of participation. And as you move down the gradient to yellow, those are expected to have higher levels of participation. And you can see that here in Greene County, we do have several of those tracts that do fall in the lowest bounds of participation. So it's important because for every person that's not counted or is not counted in the right place, there are impacts to the resources that are available to the community. So there was a recent study that came out of the George Washington Institute of Public Policy, and they were able to kind of put a little bit of math behind this. So they looked at 5 grant programs from Health and Human Services. So this included Medicaid reimbursements, CHIP, and a couple of other things related to children's services. Because of how these programs are funded, they were actually able to count what the fiscal impact of undercounts to populations were. So for 2015 in the state of Ohio, every person that wasn't counted in the previous census resulted in a loss of more than $1,200. I've been told that's not a very compelling figure. However, when you think that that is an annual figure for each person, we live with these outcomes for 10 years. So this is a number that's been repeated over a decade. And the part that I think does make this compelling is this was for 5 grant programs. There are more than 300 federal programs that use census figures to allocate funding. So if you even just do kind of back of the envelope math, you can start to see what a significant impact an undercount can have on our communities and across the state. One last reason why we're putting a lot of interest and are invested in the upcoming census is related to representation. So we've got a headline here from January out of the Dayton Daily News. It's possible that Ohio may be losing congressional seat following the next census. So because the census is pretty significant to our communities and it is such a significant undertaking, there are things that local governments can do to help the Census Bureau with the census. So that's generally considered to be operational support and promotional support. I've got a couple of examples listed here under each. This is not an exhaustive list, but if you're interested in helping the Census Bureau, kind of think about the ways that you can help them. I do want to spend a moment talking about promotional support. This is actually one of the easiest and most effective ways that our local governments can help the Census Bureau. So they're encouraging people just to talk about the census, put information into your newsletters, your website, or however you engage with your residents. This is something that's really easy, and we only do this once every 10 years, so of course people don't remember, and so just bringing awareness to the census is very helpful. They also are encouraging communities to form or to consider forming a complete count committee. So a complete count committee is a volunteer committee that's established by either a tribal, state, local government, or local community leaders to help increase awareness about the census and to help motivate residents to participate when it's census time. So there's a number of reasons why you may want to form a complete count committee, but the name of the game is a complete and accurate count. I mentioned earlier about there are certain populations that are hard to count. We also know that there are increasing number of people who are a little hesitant to participate in the census because of privacy concerns and things like that. So the Complete Count Committee is a tool that can be used to help bring trusted voices to the process. The flip side of this is we have populations that are reluctant to participate. Those are the same populations that rely on the resources that are allocated using census figures. So we really do put our communities at a disadvantage when we don't have complete and accurate counts. So when forming a complete count committee, these are some of the resources or groups you may want to target. A complete count committee is intended to be highly customizable to each community's unique needs. I gave a similar presentation to this to our MVRPC board earlier this month, and it's generated a lot of interest in complete count committees. We already have one established for Dayton Montgomery County. Miami County is now interested, and I have been made aware that there is some interest in forming one for Greene County. That's all the information I have at this time, but I know that there is interest in this becoming something that is pursued throughout Greene County. In addition to supporting complete count committee efforts, we've developed a couple of products that can help local governments when they're trying to reach out regarding the census. So we've got a couple of maps here. So the one under the jurisdiction, that's Xenia, that shows your city boundaries along with the census tracts for your city, and you can see how participation is shaping up for your community. In addition to that, we've got some more detailed fact sheets for those census tracts that do fall into the lower bounds of participation. The information here can be used to help target outreach to those communities. In addition to this, we've got a lot of other information that we're happy to pull together, prepare if it'll help you with census outreach activities. So again, the census is still more than a year away, but now is the time to get ready. So we're encouraging you to participate in a complete count committee if one forms. If not, just use your networks to promote the census, dedicate time and resources to advancing census activities. We think the payoff for the communities really is meaningful. So that's all I have this evening. So I've got my contact information up there as well as a link to our 2020 census resource page that we'll be updating as we get closer to the census and more information's known. But with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from Councilman?
First of all, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And I was at a meeting with Commissioner Tom Kugler.
Mm-hmm.
There's a group put together. I don't know if it's called the Complete Count Committee,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a group already put together in Greene County.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had a map. I didn't bring it with me. There's certain areas in Xenia and Xenia Township that gets a low count.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, I think the East End was one of them.
Yeah, so I have this map up here. So the purplish track to the east, that's
Okay.
one of the lower participation areas.
Okay.
I speculate that that's because you've got universities there. People living in group quarters are traditionally very hard to count.
Well, we have Central State,
Central
we have
State,
Wilberforce, we
Wilberforce.
have Cedarville.
Mhm.
But my understanding is college students can take be part of the census?
College students absolutely should be part of the
Even though
census.
they might live in New York or.
So this is one of the things where education is important, because the census follows a rule of usual residence. So you should be counted where you spend most of your time living and sleeping. So college students should be counted at the university. But this is where things get confusing. Mom and dad maybe count them at home. So that's why our college demographic is traditionally hard to count. And unfortunately in Greene County, you've got several universities.
Mhm. And the funding part to me is very important. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how Xenia gets his, some of the funding.
So that study that I referred to, they were able to project that an additional 1% undercount of the population for Ohio for one fiscal year in those 5 programs was an impact of $139 million. That's what they would, if there's a 1% undercount, that's, and again, five programs. We've got 300 that are using the census figures.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from my colleagues, please? Councilman?
Yeah, do they still use census takers that go like door to door?
They do.
Okay.
And they're hiring. So this census is actually going to be the first one where you're going to have the ability to respond online. So that's why there's a lot of concern about this census, is because a lot of things are changing. So you'll get a postcard, you can respond online, you can mail in your card, or you can respond over the phone. And then if you don't respond, someone's going to come knock at your door. And then if you don't respond, someone's going to come knock at your neighbor's door. So they're going to try really hard to figure out what's going on with you and your household.
If I may tag on to that, at our mayors and managers, which I know we were going to cover later, Mark Boyd gave a presentation very similar to yours,
Okay.
but the one thing he also mentioned was the job opportunities. 2020 census.gov/jobs.
Yes.
There were quite a few jobs that they were already hiring for, is my understanding.
Yes, and some of them are actually quite well-paying jobs. The only challenge, they're temporary jobs, but they are hiring. We do have a link to the Census Bureau's job site on our website.
Any other questions?
I would like to employ staff to find out exactly who's doing the complete count committee as far as Greene County is concerned, so that we can plug into it as a city council and city government.
So my understanding is that the commission is interested, the county commissioners are interested, and that maybe the RPCC is maybe being tapped to lead that, but I think it'll be as inclusive as possible.
Well, Assistant City Manager, if you would contact the county commissioners and see what we can do to partner with them and promote this actively. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. This time we have an opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council this evening, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
I'm not going to be a good speaker like she was, but my name's Janice Pitzer. I live on South Detroit Street, and I have been having a problem for quite a while with trash from neighbor's apartment where they don't take their trash out when the trash date is due. They just did get their trash cans back because I guess the landlord wasn't paying for the pickup, and so they took the trash cans away for I think it was like almost a month. So trash built up, and your property maintenance man did come around, and he's been working with me, and he thought it might be a good idea if I'd come here and talk to you about it. So anyway, what I feel that he has to give the owner a notice in the mail. Then he has so many days to pick up the trash. And this owner waits until the very last day. So in the meantime, critters are getting into the trash. We pick it up all the time, our neighbors and I. So I am thinking that if this man, he knows, why does he get so many chances? Why, after so many violations, why can't you just automatically get a contractor out there and take care of the situation? That's, I mean, I've been fighting this for years, ever since this one owner bought the apartment. So I would like for the regulations to be changed where you get like 3 notices, and after that, automatically it's taken care of by the city and he's billed for it. So.
I know it's out of place, but can I comment?
Please.
I think we're gonna talk later, you might want to stick around, Law Director, about a code change. Is that for the lawn cutting?
The code change that we'll be discussing tonight is just for the lawn cutting. We had to get that done in a timely manner as grass season, I know it's hard to believe it's snowing outside, is right around the corner. But I am currently working with the city planner. We are doing a complete rewrite of the property maintenance code. You will be seeing that in the next month or so.
So will they be just told dozens of times?
No, that's why the change.
That's gonna be
We've been too, in my opinion, too lenient, we've given us
yeah.
too much time.
Right.
But we're gonna reduce that time. And I'm assuming we're gonna be looking at issues like trash.
We can certainly look at the trash issue as well. That's the first I've heard of it. There are certain things we have to do as far as if we are going to take care of a problem and try and assess it due process, there are certain notice requirements we have to meet. But I think we can make some adjustments as to how that notice is given and how many times it has to be given.
Thank you.
The other thing, I do have one other thing. With living on South Detroit Street, that's a main street that comes into town. And there's so many people that leave their trash cans out for a long period of time after the trash is picked up. And your notice when we got Rumpke to use the new trash cans was they were given so much time to put the trash cans back, which is not being enforced at all. And then they park the trash cans right in front of their house, their front door. So you go down the street, you know, here you are coming to beautiful Xenia, hospitality city, you know, bicycle thing, and here's all these trash cans right at their doorsteps. And it does not look pretty. It's not a nice sight to see. And most of these houses that do that are rental houses where they don't care. The people don't care. So that's another issue I have, because South Detroit Street used to be a really nice street, and it's not anymore. And I'm very upset about it. So, thank you very much.
Ma'am, 2 things. You said you live on South Detroit. For our record, can you give us the number on South Detroit?
477.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have heard you loud and clear. We will be taking a look at, obviously, our property maintenance enforcement codes. Please stay tuned with us as this comes before us again. Your comments on the item which will come up, all our items must be produced and made available before the meetings and such. If you wish to come and address us again, please feel free to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to come and address? Thank you, ma'am.
Get to stand on a box. Lynette Hodnicki. I live next door to Janice at 487 South Detroit. My family and I just moved up here back in June, and we fell in love with the big old historic homes. And, you know, and as Janice said, you can tell where the rental properties are versus the homeowners, the single families. The property that's having the trash issue, there's Janice's house, my home, and then the rental property. It's drawing rats and mice and other things, and something actually chewed through the wire harness on my husband's car, and it was over $1,000 to get it fixed, get it replaced. So now he parks on the street instead of back by where they have their bags piled up. And the garage where they have their bags piled up, the paint is peeling off in little chips and in big chips. And with it being such an older home, I'm concerned about lead paint and asbestos, you know. So, you know, I don't know what's in that paint. I haven't had it tested, but, and again, property values are gonna go down. And it's a darling block. And I'd say 80% of the homes in that block are well kept. So, you know, and I was wanting to ask you, are the ordinances online? Is there a link from the Xenia City website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If you search Xenia Codified Ordinances, that will take you to the American Legal Publishing website.
Okay.
And all the city's ordinances are on there.
Okay, good.
If I would encourage you, if you're having issues with rodents, to call the Greene County Health Department.
Okay.
They have jurisdiction over those types of issues.
Okay. And I kind of thought, well, maybe all the stray cats would help keep down the rodent population. I don't know. You know, because they are out there. So anyway, yeah, if we could just get it tidied up a little bit, I think it would help Miss Janice get a better night's sleep. You know, and it would really make, you know, just little things can make a big difference in a neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victor Simha. I'm the owner of 487 South Detroit Street. And first I want to thank you all for the jobs that you guys do. I also wanted to say thank you to the firemen, and then there was a young girl who in my community in Mason, where I moved from many years prior, she was not as fortunate. She was airlifted just a few weeks ago to Children's Medical Center, and the outcome wasn't there. So it just goes to show that what he did was really above and beyond. I just thought I'd put that on the record. The other thing is, I'm just piggybacking on everybody else. The trash has piled up, I kid you not, 5 feet high. The rodents have eaten through the bags. It washes down the alley back past our house, past the other neighbors. There's trash all in the alley, and we try to pick it up as best we can. The rodents literally ate through the wiring in my car, and I got quotes as high as $2,000. I was fortunate in that my auto insurance covered it, and I had a $500 deductible. So otherwise it would have been closer to $2,000 out of pocket. Plus the rodents are just, we've grown beyond that as a civilization. It's a health issue. And so it just needs to be taken care of. The other request I would like to make is that South Detroit Street is a very busy street, and people park on that street. But consistently there are offenders who park in front of the fire hydrants. And I would think, as often as I know, because I sit on the front porch on the nicer days, 5 days a week, 6 days a week on the front porch, I see the police officers driving by. And yet one has not stopped to give a notice of, I'm not asking that this person get a $200 violation ticket, but at least put a notice on their car. Give them a fair warning that this is a dangerous situation. I'm elderly. My mother-in-law lives with us. And if the fire department has to come, they will put the hose right through the car. I've seen them do it. But that takes extra time. And as we just noticed tonight with this young baby, seconds matter. If my house is on fire and I need to get out, I don't want them having to worry about getting through a fire hydrant. It's really a simple thing. I just ask that notices be put out. I think I've piggybacked on everything, plus added a few things. And again, thank you all for what you guys do. Nobody ever, what you guys do is awesome, and listening to our complaints and making a difference. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, Mr. Assistant City Manager, if you would perhaps work with the city clerk and put out a reminder to all our available ways to get out media about parking around the fire hydrants, and if you would please ask the police department to step up their enforcement of that. That is a serious issue as far as I'm concerned. And we have heard you loud and clear. Within due process with what we have on our ordinances, we will do what we can as quickly as we can. But I think the law law director offered you some excellent advice for a health issue. The Greene County Health Department may have additional things that may work faster than what our current ordinances will allow us to do. I encourage you to reach out to them. Would anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Seeing no one else come forward, we will move on to old business. Our first item, I believe all of us received a request from our law director to table resolution 2019-C for procedural issues. May I have a motion, please, to table resolution 2019-C?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach, seconded by the Vice President. Any discussion or question on this motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we have an opportunity for public hearings. Our public hearing this evening will be on ordinance 2019-04, a second reading, amending the official zoning map of the city of Xenia, Ohio to rezone 3 parcels along Greenway Boulevard comprising 13.6 acres more or less from P1 Public and Institutional District to B3 General Business District. Originally introduced by Vice President Wallace. Before taking a motion to pass, I will take the opportunity to open this evening's public hearing and invite anyone wishing to speak for ordinance 2019-04 to step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one come forward, I would invite anyone wishing to speak against ordinance 2019-04 to step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one come forward, would invite anyone on this particular subject, ordinance 2019-04, speaking neither for nor against. If you wish to make a general comment, please step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing on this issue at this point and invite one of my colleagues to move passage.
So moved.
Moved by Vice President Wallace. A second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Any discussion or question on this particular issue, please?
My only thought, Mr. President,
Yes.
one of my reasons for support for the introduction and now for the passage is that as long as it stayed in the P1 zone, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as it stays in the P1 zone, the limitations are vast. But by putting it in B3, we have much more opportunities to market the property and to use it to be productive for our tax base and so forth. Is that not accurate? So.
Thank you. Any other comment or question, please? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We now will move to new business. Item Resolution 2019-D, an emergency. Final legislation for the ODOT US 42 North Columbus Street and East Church Street intersection improvements project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Assistant City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This we expect to be our final piece of legislation for the intersection improvements at US 42 and East Church Street. This piece of legislation authorizes the city manager to enter into various agreements with ODOT to administer this project, and as well as enter our finance director to enter escrow agreements to help pay for the project. This project's mostly funded by MVRPC with a local match, and staff's asking it to be passed as an emergency in order to ensure all the documents can be executed in advance of their planned bidding date in late March.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, from one of my colleagues as an emergency?
So moved as an emergency.
Moved by Councilman Latterback as an emergency. Second, please.
I'll second it.
Seconded by the Vice President. Discussion or question on this motion, please. Councilman.
You know, a former council meeting, I misspoke, and I want to correct the record. Somebody had asked me, it's a 75-25 match. Somebody, which is about $279,000 for the city of Xenia. Somebody had asked me if that money could be used to for our streets, and actually I misspoke and said no, when actually it can be. I support this for two reasons. One is safety. There's been in the last. Our city supervisor said in the last, 10 years, there's been 12 occasions when city crews have had to go out and address a guardrail situation. We had a lady come to a council meeting, maybe a month ago, and she lived on that corner and was concerned about the guardrail. So this is going to alleviate that because it's going to be slower speeds in a roundabout. Also, I support it because of the aesthetics for the east end of Xenia. You know, we have a West Main Street enhancement, which turned out very good. And as being a representative, and our city engineer will attest to this, MVRPC, it's hard to get their grants sometimes. And if we're fortunate enough to get it, I don't think we should turn it down. So that's just my personal opinion. But I wanted to apologize for me misstating. Again, I know the streets is on the top of everybody's mind, and people are saying, well, why not use that money for the streets? But again, I support this roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or question, please?
So, just getting on the council here this year, I'm kind of new to this project, and I will admit a lot of the buzz I'd heard around town prior to this had to do with the fact that there's a feeling that this wasn't a good expenditure of funds, and there's other things we've got to be doing with the dollars, and also that folks were not familiar with roundabouts, and really what was this. Was this a good safety improvement for this intersection? So I took some time to try and understand this and read into this, and I'll just say that I was really surprised. Looked at a number of the National Transportation Safety Board studies, and their findings, and realized that roundabouts are not traffic circles. We've got traffic circles that have been used for 100 years in the United States, principally in New England area and the East Coast. But the roundabouts are relatively new, and they're a different structure than traffic circles. And one of the principal things is that you have to do a yield to get into the traffic flow, and it also is a major reduction of the traffic flow because they're a much smaller radius than a lot of the traffic circles that are produced. And the National Transportation Safety Board said there's a 90% reduction in fatal collisions that occur in roundabouts versus standard intersections. And it's principally because you don't have folks that will be missing a light, speeding through, T-boning somebody, or
miss a roundabout.
Yeah, it is. So there's a good access. There's a good reason for that. They said there's a 75% reduction in injury collisions, and a 40% reduction in pedestrian collisions as well too. And I know that we had an individual at the previous council meeting had said they were concerned about whether we would be bringing the guardrails, back in at that point too. And I personally sympathize with folks, worried about, vehicles going through intersections and striking them. I had, when I was in high school, we had a moving van went through an intersection and literally destroyed our home and almost killed my brother during that time. And so these are things that we are responsible for as a city to make sure. But it's very interesting that the National Transportation Safety Board said there's just also a very large reduction of property damage because of the fact that folks have to slow down in terms of going into that intersection. And so, yeah, I think we need to watch that in terms of what's going on within the context of that, but just the basic design alleviates a lot of those issues that we don't have to put the guardrails back up because of the basic design. I think also, and Councilman Loudermack, I just want to make sure, because I'm new to this as well too. I think my understanding, maybe I'll ask the Jared and Ryan to back me up. My understanding is we applied for this grant back in 2013, so it's been a long process, right, to do this. But those grant dollars were given to this specific project. And if we make a decision right now to not approve this, we will lose those grant dollars. These are not discretionary dollars. These go through the MVRPC. We had one of the representatives was here for us today, and these are dollars that are regulated by at the regional level and for a very specific issue. I think my other understanding too is that the matching dollars, we've already spent those from the city perspective, the majority of those from an engineering and then acquiring the land for the roundabout. And so if we choose at this time not to approve this, we will have lost those city dollars. And we will also not have addressed the safety issues of that intersection at this point. So just being, relatively new to this, but just stepping back and knowing where we are in the process. There may have been some decision points we made earlier on, but we've cast the die. We're downstream. We spent our city dollars. We now are at this point at the point of saying, are we going to approve this so we can get the matching dollars and get the design work, go off now that the design is done, and actually implement this. And for me personally, this would be foolish for us. I'm just letting you know, from my own personal, it would be foolish to not pursue this because of the safety issues that this will alleviate at this point. Like you said, the aesthetics that it'll bring to it, and the fact that we would be not only turning down a large number of state dollars, but also I think the next time we go back to the state and say we want to go do a project, they're going to be a little bit leery with us because they would say, hey, you guys, we set aside state dollars we could have allocated to another community, and you chose at the very last minute to set those dollars aside at that point, and I think we're going to lose some credibility with the state if we would decide to pull out at this point. The only other question, Chris, I apologize, and Brian, I should have asked you guys this earlier. So, is there a truck apron that's going to be part of the roundabout? Great, yeah. And it was interesting as I also did some research on other smaller communities that have gone in. So once again, roundabouts only started in the 1990s in the United States. There aren't very many of them around. But a lot of folks have a big question about, can trucks navigate through there? And there's some great designs that have been done. And one of the biggest issues there is to get what they call a truck apron, which is the inner circle of that, to allow trucks to actually go through the apron area and navigate through that. And I just want to make sure that our roundabout was going to have that design there.
We call it drive over curve.
Yes, drive over curve. Right. Gotcha. So, anyways, I felt like most of the things that I'd heard just on the street and the concerns from that perspective had been addressed, and I'm excited about seeing this being able to step up and get going with this project. Just want to give you my own personal perspective here.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, please?
I'd just briefly like to thank again, Councilman Urschel for his research that he's done on that. I was familiar with roundabouts down in Lexington, Kentucky area where we had some issues with some intersections, and we found the roundabout was a means to solve the problem. And so we used that. And then, of course, when I took my vacation from Xenia from 01 to 11, I was in North Carolina, and they used a lot of them there. So I'm absolutely all for it. This is in my neighborhood. I mean, I'm in the 200 block of East Church Street, and I have to go through that intersection every day, multiple times a day, to get to my church and to get to Wilberforce University where I teach. So I certainly am absolutely interested in the safety of that intersection for members of my church and students. And of course, I would also think if Chief Persons were here, we could probably verify the fact that some of the kids come too fast down 42 coming into town, and they, knowing that roundabout's gonna be there, they're gonna have to start slowing down at my church before they get to that intersection. So it's just all positive as far as I'm concerned. And your comment that even though it's possible that the money, Councilman Lauterbach, money could have been used for streets, we're down the road from there.
Right.
And we do definitely need to use money for the purposes we apply for it or ask for it, and that's good fiscal responsibilities. So I'm all for it. Let's get it on and get it done.
Council President, just for clarification, because the question did come up about what had been spent and what was yet to be spent. There, without a doubt, are significant dollars that have been spent on the project that we would lose if we weren't to follow through with the project. But part of the action tonight is to put money into escrow as well for ODOT. So there are dollars still to be spent as well. So there is a significant investment we've already made, but there are still dollars to be spent on the project.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other discussion or question, please? I've said it before, I applaud city staff and NVRPC for making this opportunity available, and I would completely agree with all the comments my colleagues have made about this particular project. And it really comes down to some very bottom line terms. We all pay state taxes, we all pay federal taxes. This is an opportunity for us to recoup some of those monies and invest it in our community to the tune of $3 for every $1 we put in. I'll take that deal just about every day of the week. With that, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Dean? No. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 2019-05, an introduction, amending section 1490.03B4, titled Vegetation of the City of Xenia's Property Maintenance Code. Madam Law Director, please.
In 2014, the city adopted a brand-new property maintenance code. So your property maintenance division has had 5 years to work with that. There's some issues that they've seen, areas that we can improve. Since I've come on board and working with Mr. Forshner, we've identified some areas we think we can make some changes in the code, make it more efficient, make it work better, faster, address issues like we heard tonight. So we are in the process of working on a rewrite of the entire property maintenance code, which you will see in the next month or two. But one of the issues that we would like to ask you to address this evening is the grass cutting. This probably in the summer is where our code enforcement officers spend the majority of their time. Our current regulations, and we're not changing this, is high grass is defined as anything over 10 inches or above. Under our current code, the property owner has to be notified every single time before that grass can be cut. So the neighbors are living next to a property where the grass keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and we have to go through that process every time. So one of the changes we're proposing tonight to make it more efficient as far as notification, we will do a citywide notification by publication. We will put in the paper a reminder to all citizens and landowners that they have to cut their grass. That will be done April 1st every year. That notice will also be on the city's website. Then the first time we find a property that the grass is too tall, that property owner will be sent a letter. We think that will address issues where we have absentee owners. If it's a rental property and they live out of the city, if we can't find the owner, then we will post the property, but they get one letter. After that, if the grass exceeds 10 inches again, we will simply come in and cut it. This will allow us to address the issues quicker, faster. The code enforcement officers every summer have had to hire a temporary seasonal help just to keep up with notification. We think we're going to be able to eliminate that cost. So that was one of the biggest reasons for making this change. One of the other things that we want to do is increase the administrative fee. It's currently $100. That's one of the lowest in the regions. Most cities are $200 or more. We're only suggesting a $50 increase. The way it would work is if the city has to come in and cut your grass, you would be sent an invoice. You have so many days to pay that, and that administrative fee would be added to the invoice, which that covers the cost of all the notifications, of hiring the contractor, having the contractor come out and cut. So you would get an invoice for that actual cost and the administrative fee. If that is not paid within the time allowed, then an additional fee of $50 would be added to cover the cost, because we now have to assess that to the property. So that's the second change that we're proposing be made. The third change that we're proposing, right now the code only deals with dead or decayed trees or shrubs. We want to make a change that will allow us to address any trees or shrubs that are overgrown, that create a hazard, maybe people walking down the sidewalk, people being able to see when they drive, and just generally affecting the look and the property values of a neighborhood. So we would like to make that change as well. Now, one of the things that we've done in this rewrite, assessing for the costs of us having to come in and cut the grass to clean up the trees, that is going to be the sole remedy. We're not going to assess your property and then charge you criminally as well. The assessment will be the sole remedy for that violation. But part of the reason we brought you this tonight, separate from the rewrite of the entire code, we will need to get the notification in the paper in April if we're going to get this done. So this was something we needed to get before you this evening. And I'd be happy to answer any question.
Thank you very much. May I have an introduction, please, from one of my colleagues?
So introduced.
Introduced by Councilman Latterback. Any questions while we're here, please?
I'm sorry. Besides, are you talking about the Xenia paper?
I'm sorry?
Xenia paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to put it like on our website also?
Yes, and it's specifically in the rewrite. If you look at C, the annual notice, it will be published in a newspaper of general circulation, and it will also be posted on the city's website.
Okay.
So we will do it both places.
Could that be included in utility bills?
Mm-hmm. We could
Sure.
do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to have Brian approach the microphone if you would. And I'm going to kind of get personal on this if you don't mind, because my church has 60 acres on 42 that also butts up to Louise Drive and Eden Rock, and we were cited twice or three times last year. I know the $50 would apply in the case of the grass cutting, but right now, as I understand it, the property is posted. It's posted on Eden Rock. It's posted on Louise or wherever the grass is, but we don't have to worry about Louise anymore because that's now USDA wetland, and it's gonna, you can't bother it, we can't bother it, then the city of Xenia can't bother it. You better not put a tractor on it because it belongs to Uncle, or it's leased to Uncle. But on Eden Rock, that is still under the church's ownership and administration. And hopefully when we get the contractor this year, he won't block the egress to get down to cut that grass. But the bottom line is, if you post Eden Rock and we go and come to the church on 42, we don't know it's posted. Now fortunately, Chad, is that Chad's name?
Judd.
Judd has been wonderful about letting me know when things are posted, but you know, I'm not gonna always be there. And for the church to be fined $300, I think is just about what we paid on the first time when we paid that fee, and I think there's still one that's in question. I don't know exactly where that stands at the moment. There should definitely need to be better contact. I'm glad to hear you say that we're gonna have a letter sent to the property owner, because posting Eden Rock does not let me know that I've got a problem on Church Street or on 626 North Columbus Avenue, which is the church's address. So tell me how this is going to impact us, as you're very, very, very keenly aware of some of the problems that we've had. And I absolutely agree that we want all these lots cut and maintained and so forth, because the lady said about the egress to the city on Detroit, we want all the city looking good. But this is farmland, and these folks know they built a subdivision and moved in next to farmland, so they can't expect it to look like their lawn. And that's really kind of frustrating for us sometimes when we have to pay out money that could well be used for other ministries. So please tell me how this impacts our situation.
Well, Danette mentioned one thing about how we would mail the first notice, but the other thing I want to bring up is that we also included a change in here for properties larger than 10,000 square feet, which would apply to the property you're talking about, as well as other properties on the edge of the city. As you're aware, there's a setback requirement. Basically, for properties that big, the 10-inch requirement doesn't apply to the entire property. It only applies to a 100-foot setback from developed property. Well, we're going to reduce that setback to 50 feet.
So it's going to actually benefit us.
Yeah, because we realized, in talking to property owners who are at the city who live on the edge of town, I mean, I see both sides of it. I see, on the one hand, I understand people wanting the area behind them to look nice. On the other hand, I mean, if I live on the edge of town, I kind of expect that if there's an undeveloped property next to me, it's not going to look like a golf course. So at the same time, though, I think the 100-foot setback, even for the people who want next door to look like a golf course, is really more than I think they're asking for. And when you look at some people who live next to these properties and who've kind of extended their mowing area beyond their property line, it's typically not more than about 50 feet. So we feel that 50 feet is a more reasonable requirement to address, to relieve some of the pressure on these big property owners, but also address the complaints that we're getting from residents who live next to them.
So on the larger properties, the requirement is mowing twice over the summer. Is that correct?
Yeah, for outside of that setback area.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's the goal.
The setback area, basically, the order to deal with the 10 inches, it has to be cut at least once a month. At least once a month.
Sometimes more.
Yeah. Sometimes more, absolutely. Now, on the Louise Drive area, we really don't have a problem because all of those neighbors, every one of them, all the way up Doral and all the way down Louise, they cut our land, and they have routinely, because they are allowed to use it just as extra yard. And in fact, when we got ready to do the wetland project, the folks, wetland people told us that they could no longer do that. And we imposed on them to ask that they continue to be allowed to do it because they're putting in a row of trees. And so we think that the people who are living on the outside of those trees ought to be able to cut up to the trees and not have to worry about what's on the other side of them. So they said that they could continue to, and that's going to be good for everybody. So hopefully the trees will start to grow in this summer and get some height on them. But anyway, I think I would be in a position to support this because it looks like it's better for the church and of course, anybody else who's in our situation. So, particularly with the notice in the mail. Now, that's a particularly good piece of this. All right,
Thank you.
Can I ask
Please, question.
Ryan, once again, I apologize. I'm just bringing this up here in the meeting, so I don't want to catch you off guard. But do you have a sense of what our costs are per year for this program up to this point, besides the $10,000 for the code enforcement officer? I don't know what the and what
You're talking about the contracting for mowing, or
yeah, and then what has our recoupment been and historically? I mean, are we recouping our costs, or I don't know where that stands.
Sure. We spend about, it varies from year to year, but we spend $20,000 to $25,000 a year on contractors.
Right.
If you look at our, let's see here, our net revenue after we spend the money on the contractor.
Right.
In 2016, it was a little over 26,000. 2017, it was 14,600. 2018, it got up to about 42,500. So that's an average of about 27,830 that we in net revenue that we get. Now, you know, keep in mind, we gotta pay a code enforcement officer.
Right.
To,
Salary
and as well as
additions,
members of our finance department to handle the money and the assessments for that,
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, that overage, you know, helps to recoup part of that cost, but nowhere near all of it. So I think, that's part of the, you know, the administrative fee, increasing it is meant to
Right.
at least help with that.
Right.
And when you're talking about that revenue, Brian, is that revenue specifically collected by the city, or is that also including what we assess to the county?
That's what we collect through invoices and property taxes into the lot mowing revenue fund.
Okay, and so there, eventually, even though, you know, in some of those numbers that Brian is certifying, we haven't collected some of those dollars, they're still on the books, the county, and so over time, we will eventually receive those assessments as well. Sometimes it's years before we actually see some of those payments come in.
Well, and I should clarify, that's actually revenue we've gotten. It's not the total of what we've assessed.
Sure.
It's probably only about.
What's the vehicle with the county to recoup that?
So we certify assessments. We try to do it 3 times a year. This last year we didn't do it as many, but usually we'll bring a resolution to council. They'll approve the assessment. We'll take it over to the county, and they'll file it. The county tax on a 5% fee to put that assessment on the property. And then each year we get 2 settlements a year from the county that are for all property taxes, which include assessments, and they break out on the settlement sheet which portion is for mowing or demo and some of the other assessments.
Right, okay.
And part of the issue you face, in a lot of these cases, you can't get all the money back. If a property's been foreclosed and it goes for sale at sheriff's sale, any lien we have for mowing is wiped out. We just absolutely can't recoup that.
So we have a lien on that.
We'll never get back everything that we've assessed,
Right.
but they've done a really good job getting most of that.
Yeah, I've looked, last several years, it's been like, we get back half to 3/4 of what we assess.
But if the property ever changes hands, we will get back everything. Well, if it changes hands through a natural sale or a willing buyer, what is it, those terms? Willing buyer and willing seller, then we'll get our money. But if it's at the courthouse door by the sheriff, then we're all up a creek.
Yeah, we have seasonal workers, right? And
We do.
if I remember right, like, let me use an example, Shawnee Park, is that a contractor or is that seasonal workers?
Yeah, so now our actual in-house employees, the laborers, the ones who are mowing Shawnee Park.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's, well, how many seasonal workers? 3?
What do we have, 2 or 3 seasonal?
2 usually, and then we have year-round laborers that help with, you know, shoveling, so salt removal and whatnot.
Yeah, but my point is, on the 10-inch high, folks, do contractors do that, or do our employees do that?
Contractors.
Okay.
Private lots, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Let's move on to our last item under new business, an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $234,594.75. Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing specifically to mention on the bills.
Thank you. Motion to pay our bills this evening, please.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lauterbach. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Discussion or question on our bills, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wells?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean? Aye. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President English?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time we will move on to reports of committees, mayors and managers.
Thank you, Mr. President. When did we meet? February 13th in Riverside, and as I mentioned, Mark Boyd from the Census Bureau presented, and everything that I was going to say has been said by Ms. Whitaker, so she gave my report for me. It was a very informative report. One of the things we talked about, the importance of the committee, so I was glad to hear that the county is making some movement on that, and that Councilman Lauterbach attended the first meeting, I believe. So, thank you, sir. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anything for Mayor Mays and mayors and managers, please? Next item is Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Councilman Lauterbach.
As the mayor just said, Elizabeth Whitaker did my report.
It's a theme.
Thank you. Anything more for MVRPC and Councilman Lauterbach, please? Seeing none, we will move to appointed official reports and council comments. First off, Mr. Assistant City Manager.
Thank you. I just want to give everyone a heads up, if they haven't been aware already, that we are expecting some snow this weekend. So if people could move their cars off the streets and into their driveways, that would certainly be helpful, and we'll get it plowed and taken care of as quick as possible.
Thank you. Anything for our Assistant City Manager this evening, please?
Yeah. How's our salt supply? Are we okay?
I haven't heard. I know we have been ordering it throughout the year, but I haven't heard we were low, so.
Thank you. Anything else for the Assistant City Manager, please? Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. A couple things to mention tonight. One, I'm pleased to report that the Finance Division received notification a few days ago that we have been awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for our 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Here's a copy. That report is out on our website, available for anybody who'd like to go out and take a look at it. I believe it's the 32nd time that the City of Xenia has been certified that award, which speaks to the good stewardship and the proper accounting for public funds that we have here in the city. So I want to thank City Council for your support in that endeavor. Thank the Finance Department, specifically Jason Lake, our Assistant Finance Director, who puts in a ton of time and effort into making sure that this report is accurate and excellent. So we go above and beyond. Cities are not required to file a comprehensive annual financial report. They're required to file financial statements with the state of Ohio. We go that extra step and do a complete CAFR, which has more information available for the public and for other people who would like to view the financial state of the city. And so it's reaffirming to get this award from the GFOA. Another thing I would mention, it is tax season. We're seeing somewhat steady flow of people into the city admin building here as they're filing their taxes. Just want to encourage people to get in here. If you come in here early, you'll beat the rush. Our staff is here 8 to 5 every day. We do help and assist people in preparing their city tax returns at no cost to them. And so I encourage anyone who needs assistance in preparing the return to head up to the City Administration Building where our staff is ready to help.
Thank you. Anything for our Finance Director, please? Councilman.
I brought up our fleet maintenance program last, I don't know who came up with this report, but I appreciate, I think everybody got one. Yes. But anyway, on most of these items, other than fire and police, are we on a 3 or 5 year schedule?
It just depends on the item. Most of them outside of police are on at least 5. Some of them are 10 or even 20, just depending on wear and tear on the vehicle. I think the police cruisers are the only one that are actually 3-year cycles.
And our lease program, how did that turn out?
So far, it's gone really well. We haven't finished the first cycle of trucks, but the resale values they are still saying that they projected all along. They still think we can get, and so they're looking at planning to sell these trucks and then lease us 2 different trucks to replace them out. And our expected lease payments are expected to drop quite a bit, just because of the increased equity we have. So it works really well for we use them for code enforcement and planning and zoning, just because they don't get very much miles or wear and tear. So we can sell them for quite a bit, buying them at state bids. So.
Okay. Well, I think we're all, I mean, I'm not nitpicking anybody, but I'm looking under every rock if we can save even 10% on our fleet management program. I know some of the police and fire items, I mean, it is what it is, but how many employees drive their vehicles home? Do you have a number on that?
We have a couple of police officers that keep vehicles at their house just in case of emergencies. I don't.
The deputy chief and the fire chief would take vehicles home. I think 2 people in public service. So there are a few.
Okay.
It's a 2, yeah.
Just a curiosity question. I mean, could that be somehow, could they get gas mileage using their own vehicle?
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look at. Oftentimes, they're keeping those vehicles in case of an emergency situation. They don't have to come to the city before they go to
Okay.
the scene, but
That makes
it's
sense. I
something
mean,
we
I'm
can
just
look at.
asking.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Finance Director, refresh my memory, please. That award that is presented to what fraction of city governments?
You know, I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's a pretty small percentage of overall governments, because a lot of your townships and villages, they're not going to report on that basis, complete a CAFR. But cities, I would hate to throw a percentage out there because I don't know for certain. But there are a lot of cities out there who don't even complete a CAFR, let alone actually submit it for GFOA review.
But it's a safe bet that they're not just handing these things out either. You have reached a level of excellence in financial reporting that is notable and remarkable by the board doing such reviews. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question or comment to Ryan?
Please.
So, Ryan and Jared, I just want to say thanks for you guys doing the research on the proposed state fuel tax and the context of the benefit that would come to us as a local community. And I know you guys have done some reporting in the newspapers, but just from a general observation, the proposed state fuel tax increase has a significant feedback to us at the local municipal level as well. And that, if I got this correct, tell me if I got this right, Jared, that comes back to us in terms of the percentage of registered vehicles in the municipality, and that's how that's actually allocated down. So I was a little bit concerned whether we would actually see any of that proposed amount, or that would be held at the state level solely, for the state. But there is a fairly significant amount. And I think my understanding was, and they've given some proposed numbers, right? That was on the $600,000 to $700,000 per year. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 2020 was a $620,000 increase, and then one of the things that I think is positive about the bill is they have an inflationary factor tied in, so it's tied to the CPI.
Right.
And so as it gets out to 2024, I think it was 780,000, something in that neighborhood, as far as an increase to the city. So. It's not a complete solution to our street issues, but right. $620,000 would be a significant infusion.
Right.
And so I'm thrilled that the state is proposing this. A lot of times over the last couple of years, some of the changes at the state haven't been so positive. It's really nice to see a bill coming through that will impact local governments in a positive way.
Right.
So we'll see as it gets through committee and ultimately if it's introduced and passes, but it would be a terrific thing for the city of Xenia from a revenue standpoint. It's very positive.
Right, and I think my understanding was, based upon the street assessment program, that would cover roughly someplace in the order of 35% to 40% of the deficit that we would need for an annual resurfacing program, or the deficit we have with that. And Jared, once again, I'm just off the top of my head, but is that in that ballpark?
Yeah, I don't know if we have an exact number for total deficit per year, but at least of what we asked in the previous ballot issue that failed, it would cover a little under half, I think.
Right. So anyway, I just want to say that's a significant dollar amount, and that would be an annual infusion of funds for us.
Yep.
And once again, the street issue isn't a one-time issue; it's an ongoing issue. And so I just want to bring that up, and I don't know at what level we may have any inputs to those things.
41%.
What's that?
41%.
41%. Okay, yeah, of what we'd requested before. So that's a fairly significant number. So if anybody has any opportunities to voice your opinion on that thing, at least for us as a city of Xenia, I think is very positive.
I would just add that the state of Ohio actually has a fairly low cost per gallon compared to a lot of the states around us. Ohio is at 28 cents, Indiana is 40 plus cents, Michigan 40 plus cents. Pennsylvania has the highest cost in the country the highest gas tax in the country. So those states around us have a much higher gas tax than we do. This increase would put us right in the neighborhood with Michigan and Indiana. When you look at the total traffic that comes through the state of Ohio, I think we're the 4th highest state as far as lane miles traveled every year. So I think this is a terrific way for us in the state of Ohio to approach this streets or roads issue, because it's not saddling just Ohio drivers with the cost of fixing the roads. It's saddling all drivers who are coming to the state, a lot of them from other states, with part of that burden for Ohio roads. So I think it's a really good approach to trying to attack this issue. And so hopefully it gains enough traction at the state level.
Does all that money go for streets?
Yeah, so the dollars that we receive for the gas tax, they go into our 221 fund. Right now, those dollars are used primarily for maintenance and personnel. So the cost of a maintenance worker, we charge 20% of a maintenance worker's cost to our street fund, and then the other portions are distributed to water, sewer, sanitation, storm. Right now, what we receive in gas tax is not enough to cover the cost of 20% of our maintenance workers. So we actually subsidize that fund with a transfer from our general fund. If this were to pass, we would be able to cover the cost of maintenance, at least the maintenance that we're doing today, as well as contribute additional amounts towards street rehab and improvements. So all of it is spent on streets. The legislation is pretty broad, and what it gives you the ability to use the dollars for can be, repair, maintenance, clearing, so like snow plowing, all those types of things. But it all does go to streets.
By the way, I've got a chart out of the Dayton Daily News that breaks it down. I'm going to take the opposite side of that. I'm against the gas tax, and I'll tell you why. You say, well, what would you do? State of Ohio has a $2.7 billion with a B, rainy day fund. And the way they got that, they cut our local government funds to the tune of $600,000 last year. So to me, Governor DeWine is following in Casey's footsteps. I'm not a tax and spender. And why don't he use some of the $2.7 billion for infrastructure? And why doesn't he return our local government funds? So I cannot support the gas tax. It's going to hurt a lot of low-income people who have to drive back and forth to work. And again, I'm disappointed in Governor DeWine's approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Law Director.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Anything for our Law Director, please? Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right. Busy couple of weeks. On Sunday, February 7th, I had an opportunity to attend the celebration of Black History Month that was held at United AME, and I wanted to congratulate our former mayor, Marcia Bayless. She put together a praise service with several area churches, Dr. Wallace's church, Zion Baptist, Glory Ministries, Middle Run. Am I missing any?
I don't think so.
All right. She put together the celebration and brought choirs from each church, and then the choirs performed individually as well as all together, and she put a lot of effort into that, and it was a beautiful service. It was a wonderful time with community, and really appreciated that. On Wednesday, February 20th, I had a sit down with the Xenia Chamber, WCSU, WBZI, and WYSO. There's a lot of talk about partnering together for the community festival, and it looks like some things are moving forward of adding some music factors from these radio stations, having a larger footprint when it comes to getting the word out. And I'm really excited to see these partnerships coming together with these radio stations and then bringing some different genres of music to our festival. The next day, February 21st, we had another edition of Coffee with the Mayor on WCSU 88.9. We did another live broadcast from the Coffee Hub, and I know I say this every time, but I just want to congratulate again Nikkei Say. She's a junior communications major at Central State. This is her brainchild. She does all the production for it, comes up with the questions, does the research. She did such a great job. Specifically want to thank Councilman Urschel for joining me on the program and responding to a lot of her questions about poverty in Xenia, and had some really good insights. So thank you so much for coming. On Saturday, February 23rd, was, of course, the Xenia Chamber Awards Dinner, and, of course, the congratulations to all the award winners, but I wanted to specifically mention Mr. Brodsky our development director. He received an award, and he is just an excellent representative for the city of Xenia. He serves our community well, and I really want to highlight that his love for Jesus just shows in the way he serves this community. So I wanted to say congratulations to Mr. Dorotsky and the work he has done. On Monday, February 25th, I had the chance to actually host the mayor's lunch that several of us mayors do. We go throughout the community, and they came to Xenia this week, and we had a really great time and had an opportunity actually to talk a lot about the gas tax and spoke directly with the liaison to the governor's office and had some different ideas that were proposed, some thoughts, and a lot of good discussion. Wednesday, February 27th, attended a ribbon cutting at Old Fort Bank. They are now a complete full-service bank here in Xenia. If you haven't had a chance to visit them, they are at the old Wright Pat place over on Progress. Thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't think for a second. So they did a lovely job of remodel. It looks lovely in there. One last note, and this is something that came up at the awards dinner. I had a chance to speak with Dr. Miller from Payne Theological Seminary, and he wanted me to mention this, and I thought this was really interesting. They are hosting an exhibit right now called Exploring Human Origins, What Does It Mean to Be Human? This is actually a traveling exhibit from the Smithsonian Institute, from their National Museum, and it is the first exhibit Payne Theological Seminary is the first seminary to ever host an exhibit, as well as a first private institution to host an exhibit from the Smithsonian. So if you are interested in seeing this exhibit, you can call them. You can go on their website. It's here until May 10th, 937-376-2946, extension 203. It was very interesting to look at the literature about that. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Yes?
I wanted to congratulate our finance director and Mr. Lake for the award and for the fiscal responsibility, excellence, the stewardship. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
That's all. Now I'm done.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Thank you, Mr. President. The 2019 Xenia Job Fair is going to be held at Xenia High School Gymnasium, March 13th, 1 to 2 for Xenia High School seniors, and 2 to 5 is open to the public. So it's a great jobs fair. Also, Xenia is in the second round of the tournament tomorrow night. They play Miamisburg at 7 o'clock in Trotwood. So good luck to our Xenia Bucks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank those in the audience, those that are watching tonight. As Elder Holloway said, we're really fortunate to choose where we live, and we've all chose Xenia as our home. But with the problems we have in Xenia, there's still a lot of communities that are a lot worse than where we are, and I think we're really blessed in our community with the assets that we have, the parks and the bike trails and the shops that we have. I occasionally visit my daughter who lives in New York, and the homelessness and poverty you see on the streets it's very saddening. And in Xenia, we take care of our poor as best we can, the homeless. We have resources like Bridges of Hope and Caring Place and Interfaith Hospitality. And I just think those are just some wonderful programs that we're able to offer people. And so I'm just very thankful for our community right now. And I'd just like to lift up our first responders. We've had some issues recently in our community that have put people in harm's way, and those outcomes have actually turned out okay. So just very thankful for the first responders that we have. And it's a huge resource in our community for us to fund our police and fire. They do make up the majority of our employees, and you know, they're not cheap. They don't work for minimum wage. They are skilled workers, and I just really want to lift them up and thank them very much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Councilman Urschel.
No other comments.
Thank you. Councilman Dean.
I have nothing further to add.
Mr. Vice President.
I just would like to add my thanks and congratulations to Mayor Mays as well as Councilman Lauterbach for the work they do with MVRPC and the mayors and managers, because so much information comes back to us through their efforts there. And then obviously I want to thank Ryan and Jason for the work that they do with our finances. And to think that for 32 years or 32 years now, we've been awarded and rewarded for excellence. And that's the kind of thing that we continue to want to do always, is to do the very best possible job for our citizens and have our employees do that for us. So I think that's it. I would just echo what the mayor said about former Mayor Bayless and United AME Church did a Black History Month program on the first Sunday in July, and it was just superb. It was one of the most spiritual programs that I've been in a long time, and the church was packed. The church was packed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I just have a couple of items. I also would add my congratulations again to the Finance Department, and would echo all those comments in regards to our first responders. And again, a congratulations to our firefighter Levi Dalton for the heroic work that he did that preserved a life that has got to be the pinnacle of success in that profession. So thank you very much to our first responders, especially to Levi this evening. And what I'd suggest, and I've said it many times before, a relatively new employee reacted like a full-time, long-time professional. That is the culture of the first responders and public servants in the city of Xenia, and I am very proud of them each and every day for what they do. Government workers take a bad rap on many occasions, but our employees are first rate, and we need to be thankful for them and value them for their service. On a note for the public, I received a note today that our Charter Review Committee that we had issued a call for citizen volunteers for is still in need of a few volunteers. Please, 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 at your earliest convenience, if you're interested in being a member of our Charter Review Committee, where you will help review and set the course of our charter that we will bring before the voters, please call the city clerk at your earliest convenience so that we can put this important issue into motion for the city and bring it to back to our voters for a charter update, which has not taken place in some time. And last thing, just on a very personal note, I would like to congratulate my son William, his wife Jessica, and their son Braden. The Ingalls added 3 new members to the world and to the Xenia community over this last weekend when triplets were born to them on Saturday, February the 23rd, day before my birthday. So my son William said, "Well, Dad, can't give you a bigger present than this." But all 3 young men, three boys. Well, William, Jessica, you will have your hands full for many years to come. I imagine I will do my fair share. Certainly, there'll be at least one extra in someone's hands. But these 3 fine young men are Rowan, Finley, and Kennedy. They gave them unique first names from Jessica's Irish background. And they chose to, as they've said, the production line is closed. They chose to issue family names from both sides of the family, such that each of these 3 young men will have 2 middle names. They won't be able to fully pronounce their middle names or fill them out on forms probably until they're well into their elementary school days. But I just wanted to let them know how much I and my wife Lynn are proud of them, and very grateful that they are here safely, and that hopefully they will be. And just in time for the 2020 census. And we've come full circle. I have nothing further this evening. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn? I would. The mayor would adjourn. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by the vice president. Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean? Aye. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Ingle?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much for attending.
Hey, what's that?